You don't remember when it began, only that it feels old. This tiredness has been sitting with you a long time. Not the kind that sleep cures, but the kind that settles into the bones. You are good. People have always known that about you. You answer the phone when it rings late, even when the house is quiet and your body is already asking for rest. You listen. You nod. You hold the weight. You make space where there is none left. There is a familiar scene you know well. A kitchen after dark. One light left on. The day finally done, but not really. You stand there with your hands resting on the counter, feeling the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ache in your shoulders, and the sense that something in you never quite clocked out. Someone needs something. Someone always does. And somehow it always finds you. You tell yourself this is what love looks like. Being reliable, being available, being the one who doesn't turn away. And so you keep your hands open, even when they are trembling, even when they are empty. You notice the silence that comes afterward, not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind. When the call ends, when the door closes, when the thank you fades faster than the effort it cost you. You sit there, staring at nothing in particular, feeling a strange mixture of relief and loss. Relief that it's over. Loss that there is so little left of you when it is. It's not that you resent the people you help. That's what makes this so hard to name. You care. You always have. But caring has quietly turned into carrying, and carrying has become a way of life. You carry other people's worries in your chest, their unfinished business in your thoughts, their expectations in your posture. Imagine a lamp that has been left on for years, not in a dramatic blaze, just a steady, patient glow. It lights the room for everyone else. But no one notices the filament thinning, the warmth draining, the light growing softer and more fragile each night. You don't announce when you are dimming. You just keep shining. And somewhere along the way, you start to feel strangely invisible, needed but unseen, valued for what you provide, not for what you feel. You wonder, in a quiet corner of yourself, how you became the place where everyone sets things down. You haven't failed. You haven't hardened. You are simply tired from holding the light so long without being allowed to rest. And for the first time, you let yourself admit it. You have been carrying too much. If you look closely, this habit of giving did not come from nowhere. It grew quietly, like a rule you never agreed to, but somehow learned by heart. We learn it early. That being good keeps us safe. That being useful keeps us close to love. You didn't wake up one day and decide to disappear inside other people's needs. You adapted. You noticed what brought approval, what softened voices, what kept doors open. And little by little, kindness became a kind of currency. You give and you belong. You give and you are invited to stay. There is a fear underneath it, rarely spoken, even to yourself. The fear that if you stop, you will be forgotten. That if you are not helpful, you will become optional. So we give preemptively, before anyone asks, before silence has a chance to settle. You see it in small moments. You reach for the phone to check on someone, then hesitate, then call anyway. The line rings. It goes unanswered. You tell yourself it's nothing. People are busy. But something in your chest tightens, and you make a quiet promise to try harder next time. Or someone asks how you are, and the truth rises for just a second. The tired truth. The lonely truth. And you say, I'm fine, because you don't want to reverse the roles. You don't want to be the weight. You don't want to test whether care still exists when you are the one who needs it. Sometimes you fix things no one asked you to fix. You smooth tensions before they speak. You offer solutions where a pause might have been enough. Not because you enjoy control, but because stillness feels dangerous. Stillness leaves space for being seen without function. We tell ourselves we are being loving, and in a way, we are. But there is an unspoken contract hidden inside the gesture. I will take care of you, and you will not leave. I will carry this, so I don't have to face that. The possibility of being unnecessary. The exhaustion doesn't come from caring. It comes from the belief that caring requires self-erasure. That goodness means thinning yourself out until there is nothing left to offend, nothing left to demand, nothing left to refuse. A soft shape, an easy presence, someone who does not take up too much space. And yet, guilt begins to shift here. It loosens its grip. Because you start to see that this pattern was never about generosity alone. It was about survival. About learning how to stay connected in a world that quietly teaches you love must be earned. This is not an accusation. It is a recognition. A moment of seeing the strings without cutting them. And the paradox rests there, waiting. What you gave to keep love close is the very thing that kept you distant from yourself. There comes a moment when something quietly breaks open. Not in drama, not in anger, just a simple, undeniable seeing. You notice how tired your hands are, not from work alone, but from always reaching, always offering, always staying a little longer than you should. And for the first time, a thought passes through you without apology. This is costing me something. It's a strange shock, because you were taught that goodness only adds, that kindness multiplies, that helping others is an unquestioned virtue. But here you are, diminished, thinner, quieter than you used to be. You begin to see the pattern with new eyes. How every open door became an invitation to step further inside. How every, of course, made it harder to say, not tonight. How your generosity slowly rearranged the rooms of your life until there was very little space left that was yours. There is sadness in this seeing, a real one, because you realize how long you confused devotion with disappearance, how often you equated love with self-removal, as if being good meant becoming smaller, softer, easier to overlook. And yet, alongside the sadness, something else appears. Relief. A cool breath of air entering a room that has been closed too long. You understand now that no quality survives without a boundary. Even light needs a lamp. Even warmth needs a hearth. A candle meant to light every room will burn itself into nothing and leave the house dark anyway. This is not a condemnation of kindness. It is a restoration of it. You see how goodness, stripped of limits, turns against the very life it was meant to serve. How help offered without consent becomes intrusion. How love without self-regard becomes a quiet form of harm. You think of all the times you stayed when leaving would have been honest. All the moments you held your breath so others could breathe easier. You remember the feeling of standing in a room, smiling, while something essential in you stood just outside the door. The realization lands gently, but it lands deep. You were not noble for enduring everything. You were not more loving for absorbing every weight. You were simply unprotected. And this clarity does not harden you. It softens you in a different way. A grounded way. The way soil softens when it finally receives rain. You begin to sense that true kindness includes you. That care which costs your wholeness is not care. It is depletion wearing a familiar face. And for the first time, you allow this truth to stand without rushing past it. You sit with it. You breathe. You let the room rearrange itself. Because now you see it plainly. A goodness that erases you is not goodness. It is a slow vanishing. There is a different kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not raise its voice. It does not argue its case. It simply steps back. You feel it first as a pause, a moment when the old reflex doesn't fire. The phone lights up, and you don't reach for it right away. Not out of spite, not out of exhaustion, but out of a new, unfamiliar respect for your own inner weather. This is not withdrawal in anger. It is a turning inward with dignity, like stepping across a threshold and closing a door gently behind you. No slam, no speech, just the quiet click of a latch. Boundaries reveal themselves now not as walls, but as doorways. You decide when to open. You decide when to rest your hand on the frame and say nothing at all. The power is not in refusal itself, but in the calm with which it happens. You notice how much energy used to leak through explanation, how often you tried to soften your absence with reasons, as if peace needed permission, as if choosing yourself required a defense. But something has changed. You see that silence can be cleaner than justification, that walking away without narration can be an act of clarity, that not every invitation deserves a response. There is a tenderness in this kind of no, because it is not meant to punish. It is meant to preserve. You are not closing the door to harm anyone. You are closing it so the room can breathe again. You begin to understand that absence can be a form of love. Love that refuses to entangle. Love that does not rescue or interfere. Love that trusts life to teach what it must without your constant intervention. The urge to explain still arises sometimes. Old habits don't vanish overnight, but you let them pass like a breeze through an open window. You don't chase them. You don't follow. Instead, you stand where you are, grounded, unmoved by the old gravity of guilt. The phone stays muted on the table. The curtains stir slightly as air moves through the room. Outside, the world continues exactly as it always has, without needing your constant attention. You realize you do not owe your energy to anyone who demands it. You do not owe access. You do not owe availability. Your life is not a public space, and there is a deep, unexpected peace in this recognition. Not excitement, not triumph, just a steady, quiet return to yourself. The house seems to listen as you listen. The rooms settle, and for the first time in a long while, nothing is asking you to be more than you are. The house quiets. There is a gentler understanding that arrives after the door has been closed for a while. Not locked, just closed enough to let the inside breathe. You begin to see your life as a house again. Not a hallway people pass through, not a waiting room with chairs always filled, but a place with rooms, light, and space. A place with thresholds. A house is not unkind because it has walls. It is livable because it does. The walls do not reject the world. They hold the warmth. They give shape to shelter. They allow rest. You learn this slowly, by feeling rather than thinking, by noticing how the light changes when fewer people move through your rooms, how the air settles, how your own footsteps sound clearer when they are not covered by constant motion. Silence becomes less frightening. It stops feeling like abandonment and begins to feel like care, a careful keeping. You are not pushing others away. You are tending the space where you live. Think of a lantern placed at a doorway. Its purpose is not to flood the whole night with light. It does not chase every passerby. It simply glows where it stands, steady and sufficient, offering clarity without pursuit. Those who need the light will see it. Those who don't will pass by, unharmed. This is what your quiet becomes. A steady presence rather than an outstretched hand. A warmth that does not follow, does not persuade, does not explain. It remains. You realize how much love used to be spent on managing reactions, preventing disappointment, soothing discomfort before it spoke. But distance changes the quality of care. It removes urgency. It removes entanglement. From here, compassion looks different. It does not rush. It does not rescue. It allows others to meet their own lives at their own pace. It trusts the shape of things. Your home feels fuller now, not emptier, because nothing essential is leaking out. The light stays where it belongs. The rooms hold their purpose. You move from one to another without apology. There is gratitude in this, not loud, not dramatic. A simple thankfulness for space, for quiet evenings, for mornings that begin without obligation pressing at the door. You understand that harmony is not created by endless openness. It is created by balance, by knowing when to open and when to rest your hand on the frame and remain still. This is not isolation. It is intimacy with life as it is, measured, whole, undisturbed. And the truth settles gently, like light finding its place. Distance can be a form of love when it keeps the light alive. At the end of all this seeing, nothing dramatic happens. No declaration. No final conversation that ties everything up neatly. What happens instead is simpler. You stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. You feel it in your body first. The shoulders soften. The jaw loosens. The breath no longer waits for the next demand. You realize how much energy used to be spent bracing, anticipating needs, rehearsing explanations, preparing to be misunderstood and accommodating that misunderstanding in advance. And one day, without deciding, you no longer do that. You wake up and the old urgency is gone, not replaced by indifference, replaced by space. You think back to how tired you were, how heavy everything felt, how every kindness carried a small hidden resentment simply because it cost too much. You forgive yourself for that now. You see that resentment was not cruelty, it was a signal, a quiet request for rest that went unanswered for too long. Clarity did not harden you, it emptied you, in the cleanest way. You no longer feel the need to explain why you are quieter, why you answer less, why you leave earlier or not at all. Peace, you discover, has no argument. The moment you defend it, it turns back into noise. There is a strange freedom in being done with justification, in letting other people hold their own stories about you. You do not correct them. You do not chase accuracy. You let impressions drift like weather. What remains is a life that fits, not impressive, not performative, just honest. You still care, but the care is clean now. It doesn't tangle your insides. It doesn't require you to disappear in order to be real. You move through your days with fewer words, fewer explanations, fewer internal negotiations. There is time again. There is quiet again. And in that quiet, something settles. A sense that nothing is wrong, that nothing needs to be fixed in this moment, that being here, as you are, is enough. This is not withdrawal from life. It is a return to it. A life lived from the inside out, rather than the outside in. You have not become distant. You have become free of the weight that never belonged to you. And the final truth rests easily now, without effort. You do not owe your peace an explanation.